Om. Salam everyone. Just to give us a short summary of where we left off last weekend, we were talking about atheists and theists, Astika and Nastika. And Swami is going on to tell about various kinds of devotees who believe in God, who don't believe in God, and those who imitate others and are not very sure whether they belong to either they believing in God or not believing in God. And Swami is giving an example of the laddus and the people who have diabetes, whether they want the laddu or not, the sweet or not. I think so. We'll continue from that point onwards. I don't think we have exhausted discussing that. So I think we will start off there. So I will ask Sister Kalyani to read, please. Sairam, Sister.
Such reflections have nothing to do with the existence or non-existence of God. For an individual suffering from jaundice, everything looks yellow. This is only a temporary disease, but it deflects his true vision. To one who is suffering from malaria, even a sweet laddu will taste bitter. This is the result of temporary sickness in him. So also, lack of faith in God is a disease. Here is an example. In a marriage feast, everyone sits in a line for food, and they begin to serve some laddus. After some have been served, a few may say that they do not want laddus, not because they do not like them, but because they have a sugar factory inside themselves as they are diabetics. The Nastikas are like this. They are suffering from the disease of non-belief, and therefore they say they have nothing to do with God. In fact, they do want to know about Him. Some other people, however, even though they have no disease, say that they do not want the laddus just because they want to imitate others who are saying so.
Thank you, Kalyani. Maybe you can read the next paragraph also, I guess, because it's sort of...
As in this analogy, seeing some people say that there is no God, several other foolish people also say that there is no God. This is a ludicrous situation. Either you should surrender to God, or you should be able to follow your own dictates, but you should not reveal your hollowness by merely imitating others. You should develop self-confidence, and with that you will get self-satisfaction. Once you acquire self-satisfaction, you will be able to show self-sacrifice, and this will result in self-realization. Self-realization thus ultimately depends on the base of self-confidence.
Thank you very much, Sister Kalyani. So as we can see, Swami is placing some importance on self-confidence. That is being able to stand on ourselves, our sense of who we are, and depending on only on that and not externally on the opinions of others, I guess. I will open it up for all the members who are gathered, for anyone to share your impressions while reading these paragraphs. Saira. Anyone? I think here
let me
Swami is
start.
talking. Please,
Let me start
please,
with
please
something.
go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
As Swami mentioned, we try to imitate other people who are saying there is no God. So, like Nastikas, we follow Nastika's side. The reason is there is also we are influenced by the people. So, the people who we are associating with. I remember back in school days that we had a teacher who was Nastikas, like he didn't believe in God, and all the class members we tuned into his side because each time he was talking about there is no God, no God. At the time, I don't know, the youngsters can remember in Colombo, there was a professor, Dr. Kobu was there in Colombo. And he has written, he wrote books on that basis. And then I started to reading those books and I was turned into their side, to the Nastika side. Because so my thing is we have to watch and we have to watch ourselves whom we are associating with. That's the most important part to my point. Thank you, Saira.
Silent, brother. Anyone else would like to say anything, please? So I think, if it's clear and I don't think there's any question or comments, we can continue on. So this sort of brings to end our topic of diseases. As you can see, Swami has dealt with, I think there's some echo. I think then maybe we should mute everyone once. So Swami says, not believing in God itself is a disease. And he's telling that the only solution for this is to have self-confidence, that we believe ourselves rather than relying on others. And ourselves means our own experience. And that seems to be the only antidote for this disease of not believing in God. And without that, Swami says, we cannot get to the state of self-realization. I think with those thoughts, we can move on to the next selection. Actually, we have chosen, I think, the 9 types of devotion for discussion. So I will ask Sister Kalyani to read that, please. Sairam.
9 ways of expressing devotion to God and attaining Him have been described by the sages. They are Shravanam, listening to God's glories; Kirtanam, singing the glories of God; Vishnu Smaranam, ever remembering the Lord; Pada Sevanam, worshipping the Lord's feet; Archanam, offering daily worship; Vandanam, prostration; Dasyam, dedicated service; Sneham, friendliness; and Atmanivedanam, total surrender. Many devotees who have pursued one or other of these methods have been high-souled persons, some of whom who have been great emperors.
So I think Swami is just giving an overview of all the 9 parts of devotion. I just wanted to mention a couple of things because there were some feedback or concerns expressed by a few participants. I think a few of them said, we are using Sanskrit words and terminology which people are not familiar, and why should we use them? Was a question asked. Because in this you can see all the 9 parts of devotion have Sanskrit names associated with them. I think the first thing is we are trying to study what Swami has said, and so to a great extent we are trying to keep the text as Swami expressed here. And Swami has laid a lot of importance on the Sanskrit terms, because Sanskrit words have their own vibration which is by itself, by listening to those terminology in Sanskrit, we would understand, we would gain a better understanding of those terms. They may be new to us, but I think making an effort to learn them will go a long way in making us understand the meaning of the words in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit has that power of revealing itself to the people who are learning the words themselves. So that's why we are keeping the Sanskrit terms. And because this is a study circle, we are trying to study, and studying what we don't know, I think, is the process. So I hope you all appreciate that. So this is a high-level list of all 9 types of devotion, and Swami is going on to greater detail describing each of the 9 points, 9 ways of devotion. If anyone has any comments on this itself, we can discuss, or we will go to the next slide where Swami is starting to explain each part of devotion.
Sairam,
Sairam, sister.
Sairam, we had previously discussed this in the context of disease, and Swami had the concluding line in that paragraph was, man can get rid of these afflictions by taking to any of these 9 paths. So basically, these are like the 9 sort of values you have to develop to be able to overcome different types of problems in your life. It could be physical, like disease. It could be mental, emotional level, different levels. Sairam.
Thank you very much, sister. Thank you. I think if there are no comments, okay, please go ahead.
Sairam, this is Nalina. One of the things I have heard why Swami uses a lot of Sanskrit is Telugu also is, as you particularly mentioned, Brother Arun, that Telugu has a lot of Sanskrit as well, words in it. But I'm trying to learn Sanskrit, and you are absolutely right about the vibrations. Each of the aksharas or the alphabets, 51 or some of them, each of them is a mantra in itself, and it activates our various acupressure points as we say it. That's why words that are in Sanskrit are very beneficial for our health, well-being, and mental well-being as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Nalina. Thank you. So if there are no other comments, Sister Kalyani, you could go to the next slide, please.
Shravanam. King Parikshit, the moment he learned that he had been cursed by Shringi to meet with death in 7 days, summoned all the sages to ascertain how best he could utilize every moment of the remaining lifespan given to him. He felt that waste of time is waste of life. He appealed to the sages to advise him how best he could use the 7 days left for him. When sage Sukha entered the assemblage, the king requested him to redeem his life by converting what was a curse into a blessing. Sukha taught the king continuously, night and day, all about the Supreme Lord and his incarnations and glories. Listening to Sukha's words, Parikshit was immersed in an ocean of bliss. All the sages present felt equally ecstatic and were lost in contemplation and love of the Lord. By enjoying the stories about the Lord, Parikshit was filled with devotion and experienced the Lord within him. He exemplifies how devotion can find the highest expression in merely listening to the glories of the Lord.
Thank you very much, Sister Kalyani. I think most of you know the story of Parikshit, but there may be a few who may not be that familiar. So for their sake, I will just give a brief outline of his life. King Parikshit is the grandson of the Pandavas. Arjuna's son Abhimanyu who was killed in the Mahabharata war. His son is Parikshit, and he was more or less the surviving person in the lineage of the Pandavas at the end of the Mahabharata war. And he was crowned as king when the Pandavas left northwards to discard their body and merge with Krishna. So he was coronated by them and he left, and the Pandavas left. So Parikshit, he was always going around his kingdom and wanted to know about Krishna and his grandparents more and more. And he used to always enjoy listening to the stories and experiences of various people who have come into contact with either Krishna or the Pandavas. That is how he spent his life as he ruled the country. When he was older, at one point, what happened was he had gone on an expedition into the forest, and he had come across an ashram, hermitage, when he was tired in the forest. And when he went inside the forest, inside the hermitage, there was a sage who was deep in meditation called Sandipini. So what happened was he tried to wake him up, but the sage was so immersed in meditation, he didn't stir. Frustrated, I think he must have been hangry, as they would say, tired and angry, irritated. What he did was, just to show his disappointment, he picked up a dead snake on the grounds of the hermitage and put it around the neck of the sage, and he left. After he left, the sage's son, who is Shringi, came back to the ashram, who had gone on an errand somewhere, came back to the ashram, and he found his father sitting with a dead snake around him. When he found out that the king had done it, he cursed, saying that a snake will bite the king and he will die in 7 days. So that was a curse. And when Shringi's father woke up from his trance, he found that out, and he sent word to the king that his son had cursed and apologizing for that. But King Parikshit, as soon as he learned that he had only 7 days to live, he really decided that he is going to spend the time positively listening to the glories of God. And that is how the assemblage of many sages came to help the king think about God by telling him the stories. And Sukha Maharshi, who is the son of Veda Vyasa, happened to come there and spend the 7 days, as Swami has told, telling the stories of Krishna and his various avatars, which is what was compiled as the Bhagavatam. So that's what Swami is talking. I'm very sorry I took some time to explain the story, because there have been sometimes some comments from various participants saying that sometimes we are not explaining the context. So I took some time. I'll stop here and I'll open it up for any comments from anyone who would like to complement this, please. Sai.
I just had a question for clarification, I guess. Oftentimes we hear that, just listening about Swami or Swami stories or listening to bhajans is not enough, and we have to put it into practice and do sadhana. I guess what is the difference in this case with, like, for example, King Parikshit? Like, how was he able to attain the ultimate goal just by listening alone?
Very nice, Sister Kalyan. Anyone who would like to comment, please? I would just, well, I've been talking a lot, so I thought I will open it up to the audience, the other participants, if you would like to share something.
Sairam, I think what Swami is trying to say here is it wasn't just passive listening. He was listening so actively that he was immersed in it, drew ecstasy, and he was lost in contemplation and love of the Lord. So it was active listening with interpretation and understanding and the contemplation, and a very sort of full-fledged immersion into that. So that was probably what was what he was trying to convey than passive listening. Sorry if I don't know, that's what I think. Saira?
Thank you very much, sister. Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to comment, please?
Add a point here, there's a difference between a hearing and a listening. Hearing is simply you hear it and then you forget about it. Listening is something that requires the total attention of the mind and desire to do whatever the God wants to say, whatever God wants us to do. That's the listening part. And in addition to that, when Parishik entered into this kind of a process, he had a true yearning for that. He had a true yearning. That's another aspect of this Sravanam. And in addition to that, there should be a faith in that. Whatever that the saints and other sages are, this sage Sukha was saying, he had a strong faith in it. So that's another part. And in addition to that, he was practicing it through the 7 days, night and day. He was practicing it. That's another part of that. It's not simply listening, but also additional points in there that leads you to the real Sramanam, I would say. Thank you, Saira.
Thank you very much, brother. Anyone else would like to say something, please?
As Arul said, that actually this is a context. Within 7 days, he will have to cast off the body. So the only solution is to listen and digest and get liberated. But now Swami's students, they do Sai Bhagavatam, and any student, any Bhagavan students, you can see a number of videos in the YouTube. Even if he listen to that with strong attention, definitely it is going to elevate us, and one day, sooner or later, it can and it will give liberation as Pariksit got. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, brother. Sailam, anyone else would like to say something, please?
Hi, Ram. I think Swami always says, don't forget two things, God and the death. So here the death was so imminent, so in this so that caused the intensity for his listening. So that is a very important point here. So, but even in ordinary sense, listening to God's glories will help for the spiritual progress. But with this much of intensity, he was able to achieve it within 7 days. So that's the main point, I think. Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you. Sairam, anyone else would like to say something? If nobody is coming forward, so I will just say a few words. Pardon, Sairam?
Sai Ram, it's the Vani. I just wanted to share a few things. I think
Yes,
one of the beauty of this story is kids and adults and elders can all relate to this. Like the amount of values that comes out of this story. Like, for example, treat your guests as God. Learn to curb our pride and arrogance. The sage forgives. And we must learn to control our anger. We shouldn't be haste or decide when in anger, because you never know how bad what you're capable of, right? And be present. We, I think, have trouble focusing more than few seconds or minutes these days, no? But whereas Parikshit went for 7 days and he still couldn't get enough. And finally, I think when ordinary people make mistakes, nothing, it's no big deal. But when great souls make mistakes, it can be a warning or a lesson to the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you.
Sai Ram,
Yes, brother.
we are so fortunate. Swami was among us, giving us thousands of discourses in every aspect of our life, starting at his 14 to 84. That's about 7 decades, thousands of thousands of discourses given during festivals in Prashantinilayam, convocations, inauguration of hospitals, Guru Savadal conferences in every topic. So we are so fortunate that we can listen or we can read too in Sathya Sai Speaks or Vahini series. All of Swami's discourses are there for us to benefit our spiritual progress. Thank you. That's what I thought I should mention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sai Ram.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sai Ram, brothers and sisters, if we come to Sister Kalyani's question, Sister Kalyani asked whether the just listening, is it good enough to get the higher level of the oaths, just listening, is it good enough to realize the self? For her question, I believe the Sravanam is not just listening or saying. It's more than that, and a couple of brothers and sisters, they nicely explain. This is almost like, this is the easiest and very effective way of getting the knowledge within the short period of in this particular context. Even for us, if we are in a very critical situation, maybe in an emergency or in the very last phase of our life, and this is the easiest way. But the Shravanam it should be like it's like a meditation level. And Sister Mahasuda nicely explained that it's not listening, it's not hearing, it's some other additional attributes should be there. Contemplation and sacrifice, the day and night, you have to really capture whatever it was taught by the Guru, and you have to be in full faith to absorb that one, and you have to have almost everything in the very highest level. That's what I got it from this paragraph, and that's my humble opinion. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, sister. Anyone else would like to add something, please? If not, I will just say a few.
I was just thinking that Asaramana, this is Janani here.
Yes.
I was just thinking that this Navavidha Bhakti comes in Bhagavatam, and one of the first shlokas of Bhagavatam says Pibata Bhagavata Rasam. So one must imbibe, as drink it, so that it becomes a part of us. I think that is the sense of Shravanam, and many of the participants have touched on various aspects of it. But that word, Pibata Bhagavata Rasam, to imbibe or to drink it in. Sometimes you say, oh, drinking, I'm just drinking it in. So then that means the words go in and they become a part of your physical, your Annamaya Kosha and your Pranamaya Kosha. It becomes a physical part of your body.
Thank you very much. If no one has anything to say, I will say a few words. See, the thing is, even though Parikshit listened for 7 days, you should understand that that blessing was granted to him because throughout his life, he practiced listening. The Shravanam was not only for those 7 days. Throughout his life, he practiced the sadhana of listening. Because of that, he was blessed with listening for the 7 days. That is, I think, first thing we should understand. So it is not that just because he got worried about death, he started listening. No, it was his practice. It was his sadhana. Number one. Number two, Swami always says Shravana has to have two other components, which is Manana and Nididhyasana. Manana is to contemplate. I think a few of the brothers and sisters talked about contemplation or intensity, I think. So the thing is, Manana means whatever is listened, the mind should be fully engrossed in it and it should reflect on it. That reflection in the mind is the second thing with any listening. The third one is to Nididhyasana, which is basically practicing. I think that was the main point which Sister Kalyani asked. How do we practice? The practice is becoming what they call, you develop the bhava. The thing is, if you think gopis played with Krishna, Parikshit, by listening to that, he became a gopi in that moment. So in that way, that is this action, because he has become one with the gopi who was going through that experience. Or if it was about Arjuna, he became Arjuna. He listened to the story as if he is Arjuna. So that is becoming a part of that story itself is what Parikshit did. And Swami has not left out the main point in his paragraph. If you go back to the paragraph, Swami has said, touched all this. All the sages present felt equally ecstatic and were lost in contemplation, okay, and the love of the Lord. So even others who were listening actually were lost. Then Swami goes on to say, Parikshit was filled with devotion and experienced the Lord within him. So that means Parikshit was, while listening, not only was he passive listening as an outsider or a third party of somebody else's story. That story became his, and he felt Krishna within his own heart. And I think that is the action which every one of us has to do. It's rather than, as somebody said, it's not a passive listening, it's an active listening. In that active listening, you become part of the story and you imbibe that Krishna, as somebody, Janvi mentioned, you drink that. And that goes and merges into your own body. The same way the thought, whatever you listen should become one with you, or you should become one with what you have listened. And I think that is what Parikshit has demonstrated. And I think that is good for us to know. We listen to Swami's stories, so many stories. And we say, oh, that is interesting. It happened to somebody. It is not somebody. That story should become ours. At that moment, we should think we were there to experience that. And once we develop that bhava, then only then we are doing it as a sadhana. And I think it's a lifelong process to perfect that technique of perfect listening and becoming one with it. Those are my comments. And with that, if there are any questions or comments, we'll look around participants. If not, we'll go on to the next slide.
That's a beautiful answer, brother. Thank you.
Actually, I repeated whatever Swami had told here. It's all in the paragraph. It is just that, I think it's a demonstration when we even read. I think someone said, why are you reading the passages again and again? We already read it and come. We'll just discuss. The reality is, all the questions we ask, the answer is already given by Swami. It is just that when we read, it is a cursory reading that we do. We don't pay attention to every single word. If we again read this paragraph, paying attention to every single word, then we would have really benefited from this passage. So that is why we read this again and again, because we may miss sometimes, but we may catch it later on. So I think that is the reason we read it again and again, because that is the way Swami is present among ourselves during the study circle. I think I think there are two comments I will just read from Sister Nalina Kumar. Very true. Listening with deep devotion is to experience and visualize the entire story as if Parikshit was part of it. Great comments. When you reread, we have new insights from the same words. The same words may suddenly mean different things. That is the joy of reading. So what we are doing is also Shravana. But I think we should be more involved, looking at every single word, because every single word Swami has spoken is a mantra. Because we should understand, we have this greatest boon of the avatar. We recognize him to be avatar. So the amount of importance, reverence we give to every single word which has come, will make us also parachutes. So one day, hopefully, Sairam, we will go on. Sairam, sister, go ahead.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
hope you're satisfied with the answers.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, I want to interrupt in between. Sorry, Kaljani. Here, the Parikshit was given 7 days for the death. And then he knows for the definite number of days that he's going to be in this world. But for ourselves, we don't know how long we are going to be in this life. So what is our part? What is our part? Like say, what is our part on a day-to-day life here?
Yeah, very good question. So I will tell it to all the participants to say, what can we do? I think is the question that I was asking.
It depends on the aspirant. So, as I said before, that when we listen to the Baba's students, and they give a different aspect, and which we haven't heard. The teachers and the students, they give different Bhagavan's the wholeness as a supreme avatar of Brahman himself. And for example, I can say Sai Giridharan, I think, he said that at one very touching moment, Baba revealed a song, a poem, and in which he said, the person who made the sun rise, the person who made the river flows, the person who made the nature blossoms, that very same person has come as Sai. So, so when different things are listen to it, well, especially when Swami is not here, physically not here, and so if the more we listen to those, the more we get elevated, and it will be beneficial. And it depends on the person which path he does want to take. Some will take service, some will sing bhajans, some will try to listen stories, Swami's stories. So it depends on the person, I think. I don't know whether I did the correct response. Sorry, thank you, Sir.
Sairam, brother, Sairam. Sorry, there are two more people. Brother Kumar or somebody.
Okay. Sairam, it was a very good question. You know, then we are facing very critical time. So at this time, actually, we must be when we think about ourselves, we must come to a conclusion that we have lived our life to a fullest effort, that is fullest satisfaction. So at this point, we have to be satisfied what we have and what we all gone through and what we lived. So when we reach that satisfaction, then finally we tend to sacrifice our everything, because our time is when the time is nearing, or they say nearing or uncertain. So then what happens? Nothing is in our hand. So when we come to the realization nothing is in our hand, naturally we have to depend on higher force. So then we tend to surrender ourselves to the higher force. So thereafter satisfaction, surrendering naturally comes. When surrender occurs, this is the realization. So then, we have lived our life fully, and so naturally we feel peace in our heart. So when we feel peace in our heart, naturally the disease will go away. Every organs in our body will come to harmony, and they work wonderfully. So naturally this is a moment we have to surrender ourselves. That is my intention. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam,
Thank
I
you.
just
Hi, Sairam.
Sairam. Sairam,
Uh,
Sister Shivani.
yeah, the question, what's in it for me? I mean, what's there? The message we can learn from Parikshit, who knew his definite time frame when he's going to leave his body. I don't know if Bhagavan has said that, but I read and tried to remind myself that if we will take every day as our last day, we will live to its fullest potential. We will use all of our senses, all of our efforts to love people, to love ourselves, to love Bhagavan. So we will see good things, we will do good things, we will do some Nam Smarna. So taking every day as a last day, there won't be any act of, wrong action. So I believe that's a message usually I live by, that every day is my last day, and then how I can really enjoy that day. Sairam.
Sairam,
Sister.
uh,
Sairam,
go ahead, please. Yeah.
Sairam is Jaswanti speaking. We have all come to Swami because we first heard about him. Someone told us, or we overheard someone talking about him, or we read a book about him. Listening is drawing one's attention, said Professor Kasturi, one of Swami's closest devotees. And then Swami himself draws one's attention towards him by announcing in various places that he has come. He drops his calling cards everywhere. Sairam, this is my contribution for you. Sairam.
Sairam, if we want to call ourselves Sai devotees, then we must be following Swami's 9-point code of conducts. And one of them is regular study of Sai literatures. All Sai literatures are Swami's teachings or discourses for us. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam, Mrs. Nataraja here. Brother Arun, now what we are doing is Shravanam, isn't that? Listening.
Yes, Aunt. Yes.
So can we say that we all should become parikshits, listening and experiencing it and contemplating? Is that what is meant by this? We have to come to that stage of King Parikshits, whether it's our life is the last day or it's going to be ending soon. Can we take from this that this is the way that we should be doing Shravana? I'm asking you a question.
I think if we choose this as the path for ourselves, I think we have a good example to follow. That's what it is.
That's isn't it? Thank you. Sairam.
Anyone else would like to say something? If not, we will go on. Sairam, Sister Kalyan.
Your mic is off, I think.
Kalyan, your mic is off. Okay, muted.
Sorry about that. So Sage Sukat taught how by listening to the exploits of the Lord, singing his glories, and constantly reciting his name, the supreme goal of God realization can be achieved. Sukha experienced the bliss of union with the Brahman by reveling in his singing his glories.
Thank you. Again, so it's open to all the participants to share your thoughts, please. So the listener was Parikshit. The person who sang the glories of God said Sukha, and Swami says Sukha also derived joy and bliss from that. I think with no one saying anything, so I will say a few words. But unless someone wants to interrupt me and say, please go ahead if you have anything to say. Sage Sukha is the son of Vedavyasa, and he was supposed to have been born as someone who was completely detached to the world. He used to walk without any clothes on along the streets, and Vedavyasa used to go behind him. Sukha was called Sukha because Sukha means a parrot. He basically, whatever he heard, he had the ability to repeat it. All the stories which Sage Sukha said, none of them were his own. None of them were his personal stories. None of them were his experience with Krishna or any of the forms of avatars. But all are stories which he had learned. And always he was overjoyed by repeating what we heard and going into ecstasy. So that is what Sri Sukha did. It was similar to Parikshit. It was an intense passive listening, but active listening of Parikshit. This is an active singing of the glories of God by Sukha. So that's why Swami says that itself can grant us God realization. I will leave it to everyone else.
Sai Ram, I would like to say something regarding what you said about parrot. We say parroting or whatever. So none of the stories he told were not his creations. He was repeating it. So like a lotus, in our spiritual tradition, lotus symbolize so many deep messages. Parrot also same thing. Amba or even many other, they have parrots in their hand, and it has deep spiritual meaning. So when like parrot, you repeat, you have no ego. If we have ego only, then we want to create our own stories, or we want to tell these things. So just what the Guru says, you repeat. That is without any ego. So that symbolizes the parrot just do that. So be like a parrot in that sense. So that message is there. I just want to mention it. Thank you.
Thank you, brothers. Anyone else would like to add something, please?
Sai Ram, can we take Tyagaraja Swamiyal as Baba often mentioned him? Can we take an example like Sage Sukha?
Well, Sivadas, I think there's some issue with your audio because it's not clear.
Yes, thank you.
Sai Ram.
Well, Sivadas, can you? Yes. Sai Ram, sister.
Okay. Sorry.
Sai Ram.
Okay, go ahead. Let her go ahead.
Yeah. I would like to know, in our, that studies we learn, Appar, Sundarar, Manikavasagar, they also sing glories for songs for, the thing they did. That is also kind of Kirtanam, I believe. That is right?
Yes, sister. Yes.
Yeah, yes, Sai Ram.
There are so many who have so many examples. Swami has picked up Sukha as one example, but there are numerous devotees who have sung. Brother Sivadas, you had a question, I think. Okay, Sai Ram, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Brother Sivadas, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, no. I said that Swami often mentioned about Tyagaraja, no? Swami, the Kirtan. Yeah, so
yes.
So can you connect Swami Tyagaraja here? That's my question.
Of course. Yes, of course. Saint Tyagaraja, Sage Narada, many people like Mirabai, Tukaram, Namadev, you can go on and on. The list is numerous. All of them, Tulsidas, Kabir, and all the the four the Alvars, the four Nayanmars who sang. So many people, many devotees have taken to singing the glories of God, and they have realized God. So we have plenty of examples of such people who have done it. And that's what I can say. That's my view. Others can say something. I think Sister Vasudha was trying to say something.
Okay, thank you.
Sairam, I agree with what you said. There have been many sages and like Bhakta Ramdas and so many people who composed kirtanams and they sang the name of the Lord. But it's not just limited to Hinduism. It seems to be in almost all the religions. Christianity and the gospel songs, the choir, you go to the Buddhist chants and Buddhist songs, and practically every religion seems to have this. So I wonder what is so all pervasive about music is that when you add music to the same words, it seems to enhance the effect of the words in some way. I grew up in Bengal, so Rabindranath Tagore, he was a poet, but he also composed his own music it's called Rabindra Sangeet. So the same poetry that he wrote in Bengali, he also gave music to it. But when you hear the musical part, it almost adds another dimension to the same words. In addition, of course, he also translated into English, keeping that rhythm and the poetry and the devotion in it. No wonder he got the Nobel Prize. But what I'm trying to say is, I think when the Kirtanam adds another dimension to the words or the poetry, and it's another medium of reaching to people and awaken your inner self to another way of immersing and interpreting the words and getting close in your inner being and towards God. Sairam.
Thank you very much, sister. Thank you.
Sairam, I have a question. These sages in the past, we have to consider the time in which the sages lived. Also, in the past, there was not the time, the situation, and context was more conducive for them to practice listening and doing contemplation and achieving the goal of self-realization. But the time we are living this time, actually we have a lot of distraction, and the mind is unsettled, and the Maya, we are under the influence of Maya's distraction and everything. So in this time, the listening is very hard to listen and meditate upon the name alone. So actually, I think that we have to come to the time of the sages who lived at that time, and we are living in a very turmoil situation. Everywhere we are not contented also. So does it work? Thank you very much.
Okay, I think Brother Silvas has posed a question. Here I will open it up for everyone to discuss, please. Anyone to comment?
Sairam, this is Bhavani. I feel we have the time now. It's a matter of making choice. Reading is becoming a lost art. However, there are millions of videos on YouTube, and the amount of people who spend time on that, even 1% make an effort to listen. If you don't want to read, it's all there. So I think it's easier now than 30 years ago. I only had a couple of Amrita Kathas. Every day there are stuff coming out, but it's choices we have to make daily. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister.
Sairam, I think we shouldn't say, for myself, I am saying, we shouldn't say for us is we couldn't do those days the people did and things like that. I think we can do. Always we have to be say, I can do. Then we can, I think Kirtanam and everything, every Sundays we go to Sai Center and singing glory of bhajan and everything. We have some effect on us. After the 1 week, the satsang and the kirtanam is helping us to live for 1 week without, the Swami's bliss and everything. I think we are doing it. I think it's enough. We practice on that and focusing on that. We can do. We shouldn't say we couldn't do. We can. I think we have to be positive and for us is working out. For us, the Swami is coming our dream and giving the blessing and everything. Sometime we have a question. He's answering so many ways. I think in the present moment also we can do. Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you, sister. Anyone else would like to say something? Comment?
I want to add a point here. I think Namasmarana is part of this Kirtana. Namasmarana is that's an easy way of practicing it though. That's my opinion. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment?
Sairam, God is also known as Nada Brahman or Sabda Brahman, right? So I think singing or singing the glory of God is another way or another method or effective method to connect with divine vibrations. Am I right?
Yes, brother. Brother Sivadas, I don't know whether you are satisfied with the responses. Maybe I will also say something. And then
Actually, I didn't.
I think, I don't know whether the district. Please, Brother Sivadas, please go ahead. I think your voice is breaking.
No, I didn't ask that question. Somebody others asked the question.
Brother Sivadas?
I didn't ask that question. Okay.
No, Mr. Muthukumar is. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sairam, yeah, I do agree because I just.
The thing is, I don't know whether the distractions we have.
No, I put this question because a lot of people are confronting with this same problem. So that's
I don't know whether the distractions we have.
Hello.
And there's a bit of a. Yes, brother. So I don't know whether the distractions today are. Okay, I think that's a bit of a challenge they have. I don't think the distractions today are any more than what people experienced in the past. If we go back to the Krita Yuga, where Prahlada was born, his father didn't get time to think of God or didn't want to think of God. He had the same distractions which we are experiencing today. If we go to the Ramayana time, Ravana also had his own distractions. If we go to the time of Krishna's life, the Duryodhanas, they were all distracted. Only the few Pandavas and some gopis remembered Sri Krishna. So then I think the distractions have been there. So there have been people who have not been distracted in those days as well as now. And I think it's, as Sister Bhagavan said, it's a matter of choice. I think there is one more thing we should say. We go once a week and we are happy with our progress. Also, is maybe not necessarily good, because the great saints and sages made it a 24-hour thing. They gave up everything in this world. I think the challenge we have is, Swami says we should not be like the fly, which sometimes sits on the honey or some sweet meat. Then he goes onto the street and sits on filth and dirt. Swami says we should be like the bees. It only takes in honey. If we cannot transform ourselves to the bee, which discards everything else in this life and only sucks the honey. But I think the problem many people have is, then how can we live in this world is, I think, the standard retort from anyone when we say this. But all the devotees who realized that the name of God and devotion will give them everything, and they will not be afraid that you won't be able to live comfortably. Because they were able to willing to, even if they didn't get the worldly comforts, they were willing to sacrifice. That was a price which they were willing to pay. If we are willing to pay that price, then divinity is ours to take. Because Swami says nowadays people don't want spiritual progress, but they want to sit in their easy chair, and they don't want to have any difficulty. They want to be healthy, and they think realization will just drop from the skies into their lap. They don't want to make any effort, but for worldly success, they are willing to do anything. So I think because spiritual success is much more of value, we should be willing to sacrifice anything and everything in our life. And I think we are afraid that we don't have the security to live in this world comfortably. I think that's the fear which is holding us back, is what I think. And maybe, we all have to work on overcoming that fear. And those are my thoughts. Thank you. Sairam.
Sairam, this is Bhavani. We talked about, we mentioned so many different names and all religions, which is true. But I think we should give ourselves some credit also, not discount ourselves. I think, I think many of us can identify when someone sang this blissful bhajan. It spoke to our soul. Sometimes I see people around me like tearing up. So even attending a bhajan, or if you're a singer and you make an effort and sing with all that bhavam, then we are in that part of this also. So we must give ourselves some credit also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sisters. Thank you very much. Yes, I think we need to feel a bit confident of our own efforts also. I think that's very nice. Very nice. Sairam. I think we can go on to the next slide, Sister Kalyani.
Sorry, quick question. Sorry,
yes,
I have a quick
sister.
question. What is the difference between kirtan and bhajan? Is there any difference or? Sorry.
Okay, we don't have the material in front of us, but Swami has spoken about it. Swami calls Kirtanam and Sankirtanam. Swami calls Bhajan Sankirtanam. Kirtanam is generally one person singing. Sankirtanam, according to Swami, or Bhajan, is we join and sing with others. Swami says in that joining together with everyone, there's a harmony which develops because the divinity in them helps us all. It's like many people getting together and doing something which they cannot do alone. But if we are alone and do, we may not have the energy, we may not have the ability, but when we join hands with a few others, as Sister Bhavani said, when somebody is singing so well, even the person who has not trained themselves to sing so well will be immersed in bliss. And so that is the advantage of bhajan. And Swami also goes into maybe a slight digression, but Swami has told there are 7 elements in Sankirtanam. The 7 elements are bhava, raga, tala. I think bhava is the feeling which we have, which the words mean. Raga is the tune of the bhajan. Talam is the rhythm. Then Swami says prema, laya, and shruti. Shruti is the pitch or the note at which we are singing. That has to be also constant. Shruti. So that also means listening to the frequency of divinity also. Shruti also listening and then singing. Shruti also means listening. So when we are singing, we also should listen to ourselves. Then the second one is laya. Laya also means the speed at which the tempo of the bhajan. Okay, that was also very important, Swami says. Laya also means merging with God. Okay. Then the other one, the 6th one is Swami calls prema. there should be love which is budding and overflowing from our heart. Those are the 6 points. And the 7th one, Swami says, there should be something called Sannihita. Sannihita is the intertwining of the person who is singing and God. We should become almost close or tied up, one with that God. If all these 7 elements are there in singing, Swami calls that is Sankirtana. So just to give I thought I'll just explain whatever I've read and remembered. So that's the discourse on Sankirtana itself. That itself is a full study. But I thought I would just mention those 7 elements of Sankirtana, which is essential for anyone who wants to take this path of Sankirtana. Saira.
Sairam, to add to that, Brother Aruno, fantastic explanation of what Sankirtana is, what Swami has said, but he also said the responsibility of the lead singer is so huge. Lead singing is a seva, and they must practice each of the songs that they're going to sing in bhajans 100 times. And he said, when all of these elements you just spoke about are there, know that not only am I standing in front of you, the lead singer, but every person who is there in the bhajan hall, I'm blessing them. That's what I remembered as you were saying all this, so I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. Thank you very much.
Sairam, Brother Aruno, very well explained. And also, I would like to add some. When we sing all the bhajans in all the bhajans, I feel very, blissed and everything. And also, when I do study circles at Sangam also, Swami come and, sometimes we have trouble doing study circle that time. So before that, previous day, he comes and give us the thing to do in the Sadhu Satsangam also. Always Swami guide us and do us. We always blessed, and we had to be very confident we are doing the right thing. And also I would like to all wonderful mothers for Happy Mother's Day. Sometime all men's also doing their part to become a mother. And I would like to wish for all the men's also for Happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam, sister. Does anyone have something to add, please?
Sairam, brother, if Sankirtanam or Bhajan is one of the ways of devotion, then why it wasn't included in the 9 ways of devotion? Is there any particular reason? Or another sister, she has already asked about the difference between the Kirtanam and Sankirtanam. If Swami really promoted, or the Swami's best choice is the bhajan, and even though in the 9 ways of devotion, why it wasn't included? Is there any particular reason? Because I remember that couple of other Vedantic courses way back 20 years ago when I attended, even all these 9 ways of devotion they have indicated, and exactly the sage Sugha's story was brought up for the Kirtanam, even though there are so many different the 9 Mars, and especially Manika Vasagar was always for the bliss of union. The Swami Manika Vasagar Nayanar story, or his songs, always it would be remembered in the Hinduism. And even though I still remember that sage Sugha story was told for the Kirtanam, there must be a reason why Swami has indicated. I know all the reasons well explained by all of the brothers and sisters, but only my one question on this one: if it is Sankirtanam is so important, and we are practicing, or we are really enjoying the Sankirtanam in these days, why it wasn't included in the 9 ways of devotion? Maybe Sankirtanam is part of the Kirtanam? Maybe?
Okay. Thank you very much, sister. I think I will ask anyone else to comment before I attempt.
It is, Sairam, it is in your explanation that the Kirtanam includes bhajan as well, because even though the word some is not there, but what the essence that you gave us, Brother Arno gave us, we understood that bhajan is part of a Kirtanam. Am I correct?
Yes, brother. Because so I will just I will try to say whatever. The Kirtanam in the ancient days was an individual sadhana. Most of the sadhanas are actually individual. Even though it's done in a group, it's an individual sadhana. So each person in those days, this people who sang, they sang by themselves. It was not organized in a bhajan setting. Swami credits the bhajan movement to Guru Nanak Ji, who is the initiator of bhajans the way we are practicing it today. The reality in this world is God comes at different points in time and introduces new ways for us to practice according to the times and place. So I think Guru Nanak started it, but it was picked up and perfected by people like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who went on the streets in groups singing. And Swami gave a lot of importance to both of them, and that is how bhajans and Nagara bhajans were introduced by Swami, because these are devotees who discovered, you can say, the Samyak Kirtan aspect. When people sing together, the effectiveness is much more. But you should know that this Navavida Bhakti was originally explained in the Ramayana, when Shabari asks Rama to explain how she can reach him. Rama is supposed to be explaining these 9 points of ways of devotion. So at that time, I think Kirtanam was good enough. But as now, Swami says this is a better technique for the current situation and our current type of personality and social realities of today. And I think bhajan is a very effective one. And Swami has given it to us. And we can add it to this 9 as the 10th one, if not, or we can say our Sankirtanam or bhajan is part of Kirtanam. I think that's an expansion of the expansiveness of the definition of Kirtanam. Swami says Samyak iti Sankirtanam. Samyak iti Kirtanam Sankirtanam. That is that which brings together everything, it is Sankirtanam. So I think coming together or satsang, all of that helps in the spiritual progress. And Swami is more or less made it a bit more formal, that we can adapt that as an equally good one or an extension of Kirtana. That is my understanding. And there are various discourses Swami talking about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sairam, in the December month, the Margali, Tiruvambavai time, we do also like Nagara Sangeetanam, Manika Vasagar sang the Tiruvambavai. We go like Nagara Sangeetanam was we did in back home also. In those days also there. The Tiruvambava time we do, Sairam.
Yes. Yeah, the Shaivites did the Tiruvambavai, the Vaishnavites did the Tirupavai. If you go north, the Pandaripura devotees, Vaikari devotees had Pandana bhajans. So every part of the world has had their own share. But Swami has made it a bit more formal for us to follow. Thank you very much, sister. And I think it's 4:45. So we had a wonderful session with lots of thoughts. I think we have a few takeaways which we can practice. I think we spent a lot of time on Shravanam or listening, what is effective listening, spiritually effective listening, I would say. And then we also discussed singing, how it's spiritually effective singing goes. Those were points which we discussed, and wonderful to have all your inputs. It was actually today's session itself was sadhana. Hopefully we have more and more such sadhanas to think and reflect on God. Thank you very much. And we will close with Samasta Loka and Shanti Shanti Sai. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram.
Right.
Ram, brother.